Yo, GG here, Till Limits, and as you can see, we are here with Mastering Malaysia here today. Decided to get this out a bit earlier, so it gives you guys plenty of time, hopefully, if you've got a league race coming up this weekend or career mode, to get used to it. But starting off with this, been heavily requested. This is my wheel settings that I'm using for my Thrustmaster. Is it TXSW or TSXW? I can never remember the name, but these are my wheel settings. But in all honesty, I don't know if it will, unless you have this wheel or the TSPC Racer, it'll be a good baseline to start with, but you've really got to just play around and experiment at what works for you. And I'm using 300 degrees rotation, something I've changed recently, which makes it a lot easier for me to correct the car on oversteer, whilst you pretty much get the same rotation for most of the time. It's just that very last part is a lot easier to catch. And also as well, I am now sponsored or in a partnership with Gamer Sups, and I'm drinking the dragon fruit flavour. So if you're really interested in this, then use the link and the code below. You get 10% off. And I've never had one of these drinks before, and having this, I've been using it recently, and it tastes so good. And it's a really, really healthy option to many energy drinks out there. So if you are interested, link is in the description below. But now, getting on with this video, Mastering Malaysia, and we're starting off here. I do 3 laps in a row on this qualifying, and it's really frustrating because these are very quick laps, but to get into the 30s, I was so close so often. But I thought this would be a good first 3 laps to really just talk about the track, how you should really approach it, and it shows how durable these tyres can be in qualifying. Although I do not recommend going for more than 2 laps because it will actually hinder you in the race for sure. But for this track here, the setup is really, you do want a lot of stability because the traction is very tricky on some corners, which we'll be talking about. I'll be going on a full on lap review of each corner in the next lap here, but this corner coming up especially is the one you want most stability for. You really want to slow it down on the apex and then really release like a slingshot coming off here. Carrying too much speed and using a high ballast like we are here, we're using 10 ballast for this, it's going to make the car very unsettled. So you really got to just kind of train yourself to go slow and fast out for some corners. But for like the first sector or the second sector, the first 2 corners of the second sector, it's all or nothing really. So you got to take a lot of risks. So it's a risk and reward definitely type of track. But now we're going to come into the last corner, and we're going to talk about the braking points and how we really should approach each corner here. So getting the DRS as early as possible. We're going to come across the line. We do a 31.1 with 2 laps of fuel, or 3 laps of fuel we've got on board. That's a pretty quick time actually, especially in Grand Prix mode. But looking at the 100 meter board, as you pass that, I try and go in deep and then clip the last part of that curve. Once you hit that, you want to turn in straight away, half your car on this curve here. Let the car straight before going to full traction. Keep it nice and tight here to minimize the distance. And for this corner, it's the 100 meter board, so you want to hit that. Once you hit that, brake, middle of the apex. 4th gear I use for this one, avoids the wheel spin. Come up into here now, take a super late apex. As the curve finishes, that's your turning in point. Hold it in 6th gear for a little bit of the engine braking. For this, about 75 meters out, you want to be turning in. Try and clip both of these apexes. Run a little bit on this curve, but not too much. And now a very difficult corner, 100 meter board for this. They are late apex, really slow. As the car's straight, that's when we're going full throttle. Going up into 6th gear. As you go into that for about half a second, that's your turning in point. 4th gear for this again. Really try and control it on the exit. Completely flat out in 6th gear going through here now. And you want to be braking in a straight line. So as the curb starts on the right, brake in a straight line, as late apex as possible. Try not to run on this curb, DRS, and now you want to be going up into 8th gear, going to this last corner. You want to be looking on the left-hand side of the track, so the 100 meter board. As you hit that or in line with that, that's when we'll be braking. 4th gear, but 3rd gear, just to get a little bit of bite. Try and get the DRS as early as you can, whilst being very cautious on the throttle. And now we come across the line, we do a 31.1 again, and guesses are what the next lap's going to be. So we're just go through this. So you could take a variety of lines, but I really like to go in deep and then cut back as the curve finishes again. Take a little bit of a risk on the traction through here. Super tight once again. going up through the gears. I hold it in 7th because I just find the engine braking really does help, so no real need to go up into 8th gear for this corner. 4th gear for this, quite a few people use 3rd, but for me it just really settles the car and I can just get a really good launch off this corner. As the curb finishes, try and put half your car on this curb. For this, we'll be looking about 75 metres out or just before the 50 metre board really. Try not to run this too much, and again, this is the corner, this is the money maker with this corner. It's all or nothing through here. Trying to keep on this gear, but you can see the car always wants to step out. Try and short shift a little bit into 6th gear. Once you're into 6th, that is basically your braking point. It's kind of an instinct kind of corner. There's no real references. I mainly use it when I go into 6th. That's when I'll be thinking about braking. As the curb starts on the right hand side of the track, as wide as possible. Again, very, very difficult on here, but you will really want to keep it straight before you go on the power, because otherwise you will oversteer just like that. And we're going to go up through the gears now once again. As the curve finishes, or starts on the right hand side, that's kind of a turning point. For this corner, it's another one of those where you don't really want to be super tight to the apex because it will hinder your speed coming out of it. But we do a 31.1 again, which is pretty good. 3 laps in a row, and I'm using the Torque gloves, which I'll be doing a review on in the next couple of days. And those are my go-to gloves to actually wear at the moment, other than the Sparker ones. I really do love those. But now, this is the lap. This is the lap where I do it well. And you can see we've already got a 31.2. I mean, we've got 3 laps of fuel for this as well. So we actually didn't underfuel a car. So got quite a heavy car, but this is my best lap in the session. Which I was really happy with. So again, same braking points apply. It's a track where you just gotta really be comfortable with trying to catch the car or oversteer. You just gotta be very, very, take the risk with the traction, because if you don't, you will lose a lot of time. So trying to get in relatively early. Don't run on that outside curb, because it will actually kind of auto spin you out onto the track. So try and avoid it as much as possible. You can see 6th gear, maximum commitment through here. You just got to give it that commitment, and you'll just get into the rhythm for the race. So clipping this curb again, but not going too out wide in this one. And now we get this corner very, very well from what I remember. So short shift or downshifting very slowly. 3rd gear, now when you're on more straight, that's where you're going on full throttle, wide as you can. 4th gear through here. Some people take 5th, but 4th I just find gives me a little bit of extra bite. Not as much wheel spin as we did in the other laps this time. Full throttle through here. Curb on the inside. As that starts, do nice and wide, try and brake as deep as possible. You don't really want to be touching that curb or the outside curb as much as possible. Try and just kiss them if you can on the DRS, going up into 8th gear. And this corner, let's see how we do this one. To 100 meter board once again. Try a relatively wide entry. We actually missed the apex, but getting the last part of it pretty nicely. As the car's straight, that's the best exit we've got out all the laps so far. Coming across the line, we do a 30.9, which I was actually really, really happy with, that we finally managed to do that. But now we are going to skip onto the race, and to show you the setup I'm using, which you probably might actually be quite surprised with, we're actually using 3.9 wing, and that part of the setup was actually given to me by AOR Formula Danny, or Veloce Danny on the PC, who's the current leader in AOR. 3.9 wings, it works very, very well for me. I feel definitely downforce is a lot more beneficial around here than it is with straight line speed. But 80-70 diff, you want good traction, but the car can become quite unstable through the corner, so it just really limits that. With the suspension geometry, that's basically as maximum stability as possible. For the front suspension, you want it as pointy as possible, but you want the rear end to provide quite good traction as well, and a little bit of stability, which is basically what the rest of that suspension actually is. It just makes the front end a little bit more pointy than the rear, because you do need that, but we're kind of complementing that with the wings and the suspension geometry. Brakes is all personal preference. Lower than what I usually run, because you can lock up quite easily, so some stopping power, but you also want the ability to actually change direction, which is what the 54% is, because if you had it more towards 60, you would stop quicker, but you'd lock up, potential to lock up a lot more. Whereas with 54, it's less stopping power, but changing direction, it enables the car to just change direction that much quicker. And that's for the start of the race. You want to be on about 20% of the throttle before going up into full gear. As Vettel has got an absolutely amazing start, but we did get a good start. Trying to get it first into his first corner, trying not to do that in a league race where you just drive into someone. We're desperately trying to stay ahead of him for this one. A little bit of a collision. But we go on to our best lap, or our best lap in this first stint. and you want to be starting the super soft tyres. As I said, you don't want to do more than 2 laps, because if you do that, you can definitely do a 1-stop in this race, even with 3, but it would probably hinder your performance in this first stint. So I would recommend, if you're confident to do 1, then that's absolutely great, but I reckon you can definitely do 2 and get away with it. Just make sure you drive very slowly on your in and out laps for this. But in terms of the gears and how you approach this, the gears are exactly the same as what I use in qualifying, so there's no difference at all. It's basically, you just want to be turning just that half a second earlier per corner than what you do in qualifying, and it's just a lot more slow paced, obviously, with the fuel, and it's just something we just really need to get into a rhythm. And this corner here, we'll be able to see going up into 7th, 100 meter board once again, but everything's just slowed down, really slow here. Once it's straight, that's where we're going full throttle. Stay nice and tight here, which gives you a nice slingshot effect coming out of this. And again, the race feels really nice to drive in. Everything is just, as I said, a lot more slowed down. It's just a case of really getting into the rhythm, but it is one of those tracks where, particularly in the second sector, you've still got to give it that commitment, because if you leave a little bit of pace on the table, you can definitely be losing about half a second or so per lap. And the tyre wear is reasonably high around here. As I said, we did 3 laps in the qualifying for this as well. Well, actually, I think this one we might have only did 2, because we did it at 30.9. I think this is the one we did 30.9, so I think we only did 2 laps actually for this. Coming across the line now, which are 35.2, which is not bad really at all. Just giving you an example of really how I drive in the race. But now, towards the end of lap 8, we could go for another lap, but we're starting to lose a little bit of time now. We're starting to be, I think we're doing like very low 36s now at this point. So we're going to go into the pits and try and spot the braking point for this. Go into this in 4th gear. What I do, I tend to brake as you go past the banner, as you pass the shadow, you want to go 100% on the brakes, and that's really what you want to do. Once you go underneath that banner, go 100% on the brakes, and you'll be absolutely fine going into the pits. And we're going to go into the medium tyre. There's no option to go on the soft, because the soft wears about 5 or 6% per lap. You won't make it to the end, and a 2-stop is definitely slower around here. And we'll be able to come on board now. This is my fastest lap on the medium tyres, and we're just going to leave the tyre wear open, because I think that's pretty interesting. It was 3-3-2. The 2 was for the front right. Everything else was on 3 for the start of the lap, so we'll be able to see at the end. And I feel if you pit at the end of lap 8, you will definitely make it to the end. It will be around about 80-ish%, 70 or very high 70 to 80-ish%, but on the medium tyres, you can get away with getting into the very high 80s, even 90s if you can. So ideally, I would probably pit on the end of lap 9 if I can. That's probably the lap I would pit if I could choose that. It depends the race situation, what you win. If you've got a little bit of a lead, then maybe you could pit end of lap 8 just to get a little bit of that undercut, but we'll be able to see the pace now. The grip's all there, just driving exactly the same as you do. This corner is definitely the most unstable corner on the track. You can see we're going faster at the moment. 4th gear here, clipping this apex nicely. Not trying to do anything drastic, but just trying to get in a good rhythm of this race. And also, I hope you appreciate that I've actually mirrored my webcam now as well. So it actually is in line with what I do with the wheel, whereas it was when I turned one way, it was the opposite way before. So hopefully you appreciate that. If you want me to change anything as well, make the webcam bigger or even in a different position, then always just let me know, because it's very simple to change, and hopefully you appreciate that as well. And I'll be doing the video on the gloves in the next couple of days, like Saturday probably I'll be doing that. So I absolutely love them, and I actually do prefer them to the Sparkle ones. But now, we were using 3.9 wing with 10 ballast, as you can see going through here, but I actually decided to put it down to 2 because I know some people do that, and I just wanted to try it because it felt at times it was a little bit unstable. So we're just going to try this again, and if you're someone who likes an oversteer setup where it's very pointy, then I would recommend 3.9 10 ballast. But for me, I do like a little bit more of an understeer car where it's a little bit more stable. And it just allows me to really attack the corners more, knowing that the car is really just going to stick to the ground. So we're going to do our quickest lap in this first stint as well, and I have to say I actually do prefer putting it to 2.9 rather than 3.9, because it just provides just a lot more confidence and traction, definitely more understeer, but you'll be able to see by the lap time here, I actually do think it's definitely the way to go to actually do it. So going 4th gear once again, you can see car does always wants to get away there. That corner in particular is always one where it's very, very difficult. We can see coming through here, not as much downforce as we had before, but you can see running a little bit wide here as Hulkenberg goes that way. So 5th gear, slow in, fast out for this corner, try and clip this curb if you can, half on this curb. And now this one, this is the corner where you really need to pay attention. Don't turn too much. Open up the steering before going on the throttle. As you can see, it always wants to kick out, but you can see we've got a really good launch off this now, and we're on a very good lap actually. This is a very, very quick time for this, well, for this part of the race. And you can see going flat out as always through here is never in doubt, and flat out for this. As the curb starts a little bit past that, try and do a super late apex for this. As the car's straight, another one. You just really got to be confident just on the traction around here. Traction is pretty much everything for this. Going up through the gears now, 100 meter board once again. Going down 4 gears, and then 3rd gear, again, missing the apex slightly, but still getting a good rotation throughout the car. And you'll be able to see coming across the line here, we actually do a 34.9, which is a very good time. So that is mastering Malaysia. I hope you really enjoyed that. Let me know anything you want to know as well, and see you later.